concert. I think Springsteen was on it. Eddie Vedder was on it. Does anyone remember what I'm talking about? It's about 2004.
Vote for Choice?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was about 2004.
Okay, right.
Yep, Springsteen, Vedder, yep.
And I saw something in the Chicago Sun-Times where they printed letters in response to the review of the show. Because in the review of the show, the writer Jim DeRogatis I think he was, I don't know if he's with the Sun-Times anymore. Very well-known writer. The man who once famously I borrowed from a concert and reviewed the concert from a lawn chair outside the club. It's a great story. I like Jim a lot, actually. He's somebody who's passionate about music, which is where he and I connect. Okay, but not about me. Jim wrote a review of the show, and in the show, he printed some of the things that they were saying. And I was very surprised by the letters that I was reading that they printed. They'd obviously got so much mail or email that they decided to do like a 2-page spread of people's letters. And there was a lot of stuff, and a lot of the comments, and I'm paraphrasing, were artists should just entertain and shut the fuck up. And you know, I'm a 60s baby, right? So I grew up in like Neil Young, Four Dead in Ohio, you know, For What It's Worth, you know, songs that were defined and still define a particular era. You know, Country Joe and the Fish, you know, Not Going to War. I can't remember the song. It's a great song. What am I trying to say? So when I ran into Jim, I said, I was really surprised by that. You know what I mean? There was so much antipathy towards the artists for speaking up for something that they believe in. And he said it was the most mail he'd ever received on anything he'd ever done. And I said, what was the ratio of for and against? Because generally speaking, Chicago tends to lean liberal. Democratic president, mayor, it's pretty obvious with the culture there. Blue state. He said 3-1. 75% of what he got was shut the fuck up, just be entertainers. And I thought, at the time I was like, wow, that's really weird. So when I look now, 10, 11 years later, I mean, you can see, it's a general thing now. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. So, the defining point I'm trying to make is, what is an artist for? So at this point, I'm more of an entertainer than I'm an artist. There is a class of fan that does want to participate in the journey, and I think what's cool is we're still, the collective we're still defining new ways to define that journey. This is one way that wouldn't have been acceptable 10 years ago. Now this is acceptable. Cool, great. Works for everybody. Works for me too. But you have to look at the general culture, which drives the bigger conversation, which is most of the people that walk through this door, their greatest hits. Their greatest hits. To them, the band is no more important or no less important than 7 or 8 other 90s bands. And you'd be surprised the bands that they think you're on the same level to. You know, I'm not talking about the big ones. I'm talking about ones you go, really? Because to them, it's not. It's the soundtrack of their lifestyle. The Pumpkins didn't represent anything more than, I like that song, I like the video where you're flying across the moon, and they don't see the Pumpkins as being extant. And last point I would make is, there's that documentary when Crosby, Stills, Nash and reformed about 5-7 years ago, and they get booed because they're being political on stage. I mean, these are men who define what it means to be both commercially and socially responsible and important. And then literally their audience is booing them out of the building for saying, you know, stop the war, save the whales, whatever. And they literally interview people in the documentary, and the people are saying, they should shut the fuck up. I didn't come here for this. So we're getting into mob rule sort of dictating the conversation. So what's beautiful about the In Plainsong shows is at least seems to be shifting the conversation back to art, back to expression. It certainly ain't going to be political, but it can be political in its intent. And that's sort of where I sort of go that's enough because just can't deal with the hate, you know. All right, one more question.